I first became acquainted with Michael Budman's genius for publicity when I began to notice a lot of Roots t-shirts and sweatshirts and leather jackets appearing suddenly on our air. And so charming were those Roots people. Raymond, are you in the audience? Raymond Perkins? That it was a hell of a job for me to convince our people that if we kept giving it away, I mean advertising, it would be awfully hard to get somebody to pay for it. That's when I realized that Michael Budman had realized that it had gone way beyond clothes, that it was about a style of living. And that we were no longer talking about schmatas. We were talking about modern media. We were talking about contemporary culture. In a way, we were talking about politics. And it was long before the business crowd began to make the word branding into some kind of iconic target for everyone to reach for. That these guys, Michael and his partner Don Green, went out and glamorized the Canadian wilderness. It, of course, stands to reason that they're two American boys from Michigan. So, the reason we asked Michael here is that if there is a promotion hall of fame somewhere, and I think there should be, what these guys pulled off most recently in Salt Lake City qualifies them for the #1 award. Michael Budman.
Thank you, Moses.
You made Canada famous.
Thank you, Moses, and thank you for inviting me to speak. And I think I just want to say that Toronto is a much greater city because Moses is here and his operation is here, and obviously City TV has really demonstrated throughout the world what a great idea it is in itself. I'm pleased to be here, and I think that yesterday was a great day for my family and myself. We hosted our good friend Lauren Michaels, who received a doctorate at the University of Toronto, and during his speech, one of the things that he said, which stuck with me, was, if you're ever in a room and you're the smartest, and you look around and you're the smartest person in the room, get out. Well, I know I'm not leaving this room. So I wanted to touch on quite a few subjects today, and we can start, Sam, with the original Roots beaver. And that's our brand. And my partner of 29 years, Don Green, is in the house tonight somewhere today. And Don and I started the company in '73. And here we are in '73. And we were high school fraternity brothers, college fraternity brothers. We were always best friends, and we still are. And it's been a great journey to develop the brand of Roots together. And certainly it was a good idea when Don, in 1972, was waiting for his girlfriend, who at that time was in high school, looking through her biology book, and the word Roots popped off the page, because we think it's, not trying to be facetious, but we do think it's the finest brand name for a brand in the world. And it's something that everyone in the world shares in common. We all come from someplace, no matter what our religion, our color, our beliefs. We all have a heritage, and we all share in some way. The lowest common denominator is our roots. And that's why we're so confident of the success of our brand, because it is really such a powerful word. The first product, I've got my assistant with me to hand me the first product that we ever made, which our first employee, Denise Tremblay, is holding from 1973, was the Sport Root. And Don and I wanted to start our idea was to be in Toronto and bring something here that wasn't here. And we found a product called the Earth type shoe, and we wanted to bring it here. It was developed in Denmark. Before the Earth shoe, we were thinking about water beds and yogurt and fruit and different things, and I'm sure glad we found this shoe. We tried to make an arrangement to bring the Earth shoe into Canada, and we couldn't. And then we decided to develop our own product. And this product, this one single product, our first item that we ever created, which we're still making today, is really the first time that anyone took an athletic upper, which is the leather part, and put it on a very casual walking type sole. So we're very proud of the heritage of this product, and we're proud of the heritage of the beaver logo, which was developed by a good friend of Moses's and ours, Heather Cooper and Robert Burns, and we were always aware of the graphic approach to our business. Okay, Sam. Through those years of the negative heel, which go from about 73 to 76, we were very fortunate that the world always seemed to love roots, and they always seemed to love our products, and very famous people seemed to be attracted to our products. And this was a meeting in 1975 when Don and I were in Ottawa, and Pierre Trudeau was a big fan of roots, and his wife at the time, Margaret, and they gave us tremendous exposure unknowingly by wearing the products. And we were in Ottawa on a fashion shoot, and literally he walked out of Parliament, and that is something that I really love, that moment. I'd say gotta be circa 1975. In 1976, the Canadian Olympic team came to us and wanted us to outfit the athletes when they were going to their winter games in Innsbruck. And we picked a boot similar to this on this negative heel shoe, and this was our first contact with the Olympic movement. At that time, they did things differently then, and they were very cautious, and only products were made for the team, and there was never any thought of selling the product to the public of what you made for the team. And that was the first taste, and also the first Olympic Games that I was ever at. I went to Montreal in 1976 and had a tremendous experience, and that led a big impact on me, both outfitting the team and being in Montreal. Al, you can hand me that jacket. Yeah. The next impact was in 1988. The Jamaican bobsled team came to Toronto, and when they came to Toronto, literally they came off the plane and they didn't have any jackets on. So we were contacted, and of course we were happy to make them jackets, and this was the jacket, one of our favorite pieces that we made for the Jamaican bobsled team. That was their logo. We had a great design. We were sort of fringing on those O's at that time with roots, and this was in 1988. I think Don and I went to Calgary. We experienced this incredible Olympics. We really got the first taste of what success could be like on that world stage, and we had one store in Calgary, and we did tremendous business with this logo, and we worked with the COA again. And I remember being at the pin trading street, and there was thousands of people there, and we were talking to the fella that owned one of the stores, the souvenir stores, and I never forget the line he said. Don and I, we were talking to him, and he said, I looked at him, I said, well, how's business? And he looked at me, he said, it's been a hell of a February. So that always stuck with us, and that was a great experience to be part of that pop culture hit, which was the Jamaican bobsled team, which went up into pop culture and became had a huge impact. After '88, my son, I decided to take my son to Lillehammer. Lillehammer was in 1994, and the Norwegian flag and the Canadian flag. And the first time I heard about Lillehammer, which I never heard of before, was it said Lillehammer Olympics, February 12th, which is my birthday, to February 28th, which is my son's. And then the next line said, this Olympics is devoted to youth and to environment. And I felt that this was an omen, because those were my two things that interest me more, the environment and youth, to go to Lillehammer. Now wait, we got to backtrack a little, Sam. Cut to, let's see, come back. Starting with the Olympic movement, this is a photo of ancient Greece, and my next goal is to go to the ancient Olympiad 3 hours outside of Greece. And of course, that's where the Olympics started. In the 1896 was the beginning of the modern Olympic movement. You can go to the next. And that's when a very small amount of countries assembled, but the United States was one of them, to partake in the first Olympics. In the evolution of athletic clothing, which is sort of what I want to speak about in the fashion of athletic clothing, one of the first well-known recognized names was Rene Lacoste. Rene won some major tennis tournaments, and his nickname was the alligator because when he got an opponent, he'd never let go of them like an alligator would their prey. He teamed up with the largest manufacturer of sportswear in Paris, and they created the Lacoste shirt, which is now a tremendous brand worldwide. That was in 1933. In 1934, Fred Perry, who was a great English tennis champion, and as a tribute I'm wearing his pants, he also was a Wimbledon champion. He had never taken up tennis till he was 18, and supposedly a very attractive guy and great dresser. He created the next collection, which was the Fred Perry collection, which is having a rebirth today. That was the next evolution in sort of the history of athletic clothing and fashion. During this time, of course, baseball became the American pastime, and people were starting to spend more of their time going to athletic events, and sports became a great pastime of the American public. The Canadian public, of course, have this great passion for hockey, and especially after the war, it started to expand, and strangely enough, women became more interested in professional sports. Going back to the Olympic movement, in the modern day Olympics in 1936, Germany held both the Winter and Summer Games, and this was a very strange period in our last century, and somehow they got awarded both games, and it was under great debate that the United States took place in the games. Avery Brundage, who was the president of the United States Olympic Committee, later to be the chairman of the IOC, did not want to boycott the Olympics. There was a big movement to boycott the Olympics, but you can go on to the next one. I think this was where we saw one of the first real uses of branding, and this is when I look at some of this stuff, I get scared about what's going on today. But you see on the left is a photo of German female athletes, which is part of the promotion and propaganda of the 1936 Olympics. When I was studying this Olympics, I noticed that Prada last year ran an ad which was identical to this, which disturbed me. On the right, you see the use of the swastika and how the 96 Olympics became a platform for Hitler and Nazism, and really for him to take his brand and take it to a world stage through the use of the athletic movement. This is what foiled Hitler, of course, was Jesse Owens on the extreme left, and you see there the team in 36 with the identity from the USA, and Jesse Owens, of course, won, I think, 3 or 4 gold medals and sort of disproved Hitler's theories, and he was a great champion and represented his country extremely well throughout his career. That, go back there. when I talked about Lillehammer, you can sit right there, honey. Just sit on the end. When we talked about Lillehammer, I wanted to speak about Stein Eriksen. Stein is a great Nordic champion, and I was fortunate enough with my son to stay at the same lodge that Stein was staying at, and through Stein, I learned the true meaning of what a champion was all about. And he is a tremendous champion. He won a gold and silver medal in 1952 in Oslo, and he became the most influential person in the ski business in the United States for the last 25 years, or last 50 years, since he moved to America in the early 50s. And we were fortunate enough to stay at a very rustic lodge with him, and through spending time with him and his family, I really understood the Nordic way. And the Nordic way is a tremendous way of living, and very outdoors and very natural and very family. And without Stein, there wouldn't have been, I think, the success that Roots has experienced in the Olympics, because he gave both Don and I a great knowledge of the past. Okay, when my son and I were in Norway, we had a great experience, and that led us to 98. 1998 was the 25th anniversary of Roots, and in our 25th year, we wanted to do something great for Canada, because we felt good about the country, and we felt good. This is the home of Roots, and we're proud that our company was part of Canada, and we think that we were the first people that really put Canada on clothing. We used to travel the world. We'd go to Paris, we'd go to London, we'd see Hermes Paris, we'd see Gucci, Milano, but no one ever spoke about Canada. And we really had this idea of Roots Canada, and that became our trademark. So we went to the COA and we said, look, it's our 25th anniversary, let us dress the team. We don't like what's been happening before. We think we can give it a fresh objective. And they agreed, and we also agreed that everything that we made for the team, with the exception of one item, we would offer to the public, because of course we could generate revenue for the Canadian Olympic Association. So the the hat that my son Matthew's wearing, the poor boy hat, became a symbol of the team. And the team looked good, they felt good, consequently they performed well. Can you go to, I think the 1998 Winter Olympics was the most successful to date that the Canadian team ever had. And we then developed, this was from our experience in the clothing. In 2 months after the Olympics, we were called to present to the Prince and his two sons the Canadian Winter Olympic outfits. And that jacket, of course, is something that Roots, we feel, has made famous throughout the world, was the hockey jacket and the team jacket that we brought back. And that became the podium jacket. And that was supposedly the best photo ever taken of the Prince and his two sons, especially 8 months after the tragedy they experienced. So that again took the Olympic, the Canadian Olympic team's merchandise on a global level. That one single experience expanded the brand of Roots greatly, and we were really proud to be associated with the team. As we evolved, we went on to Sydney, and during that time there was tremendous turmoil in the IOC, but we stuck to the fact that everything about the Olympics for us was focused on the athlete. We always focused on the athlete. So we dressed the Summer Olympic team, and they did extremely well. They didn't win that many medals. Here's a great mix of a great professional baseball player, Carlos Delgado, who's from Puerto Rico, and he loves living in Toronto, and he loved the Canadian merchandise. He was going to Australia at that time to support the team. We've always been fortunate to have celebrated artists, sportsmen, writers, directors, actors wear our clothing. And here's one of our favorites, Dan Aykroyd and his wife Donna Dixon in the Roots USA hat. Now we come to 2002, and this is an interesting experience, is that we had this great success with the Canadian Olympic team, and I remember being in Nagano, and the head of the U.S. Olympic team came up to me and said, "How did you do it? The team is everywhere. They look so unified." And the U.S. team, I mean, if they tried, they couldn't have looked worse, and especially with the Western hats. So they came to us, and they, a year before the Olympics, they approached Roots and asked if we were interested in dressing the team. And we had mixed emotions because we were so successful with the Canadian team, but at my last meeting with Carol Ann Lethern, 3 days before she passed away, she gave it her blessing, and she loved the idea because she felt that the Olympics is a worldwide movement, and she thought it was a great honor for a Canadian team to be asked to dress the American team. And when I look back at it now, and I look at this fall, how patriotic every big name designer was, I wonder where they were when the USOC came to us, because they couldn't give away the project to anybody. And in fact, when we started the project, you couldn't give away anything that said the U.S. Olympic team. It was unsaleable. So that was a great project, and opening day at Salt Lake City was a remarkable day. I was with my family and with Don, and the first thing we did when we left our house was we drove to Salt Lake from Park City, and when we got there we realized we brought the tickets to the closing ceremony. So we had to turn around, and we came back, and when we went to the opening ceremony, there were 8 vignettes with the U.S. team, because they were the host country. And the first one was in honor of 9/11. 8 Olympians came out with the New York Fire Department and Police Department carrying the flag from 9/11. And I've been to many events and many stadiums. That was the most dramatic moment I've ever experienced. And when we came out of the stadium that night, and you never know if things are going well, the first thing I walked into someone selling the USA Today, and that photo was on the cover of USA Today, and 72 million Americans and over 3 billion people saw that, and that changed the world of Roots forever. And it was a very incredible experience, and from that experience, again, we seemed to touch people, and the beret, which we developed with the U.S. Olympic Committee, became the item. And that beret, well, this was the Canadian team, of course, coming in. We also outfitted the Great Britain team, which we're very excited. The British Olympic Association, we're moving forward with both of them. Yes. Is the time up? We'll wrap it up, but we had a great experience there. Some people call it the biggest hit in the history of sports merchandise. There's the 3 snowboarders. I want to particularly pay note to this as I wrap it up. On the stage, every night, if you win a medal, your medal is presented to you at a medal ceremony. And someone had the great idea of turning the medal ceremony stage around every night and bring out great performers. Go back to the Bare Naked Ladies. There they are. With Sally and Peltier, who at that time had gotten their silver medals. And I think Raymond Perkins, the director of communications, he had dressed Bare Naked Ladies in the Canadian attire. He dressed Sally and Peltier, and there's a convergence of fashion, music, and sport. And that clip was seen all over the world for 4 days. And we're pretty proud of how that all played out. And most importantly, everything was great for the athletes. Again, in sync on stage, Mark Anthony, and go back to Rudy. The last night of the Olympics, we hosted Lorne Michaels, which is like hosting another foreign country, and we had a special dinner for Rudy Giuliani at our chalet, and that was a great moment. And it was been a hell of a ride, and since that Olympics, we've had so many opportunities. And I think, in closing, I think that 3 things contribute to success: confidence, luck, and talent. And in starting a brand from a blank piece of paper and with just an idea, I think that I was very fortunate to have a partner who's very confident, has a lot of luck, and has talent. I think together we've achieved a great thing for the brand, and we continue to keep it going. But I think that those 3 things help a lot in being successful. And I thank you, Moses, for inviting me, and I hope you enjoyed what we had to share today.
Thank you, Michael.
You look good in white.
You look good.
You look good in white.
So this is a media story and obviously a business story of great importance. The reason why I've got Michael firmly by the hand is I want to tell you about the next project that he and I are both embarked on. Michael showed you that his original logo and his enduring logo is the Canadian beaver. And I remarked to him one day that in my movement around the world and as I go into souvenir shops and tchotchke stores, I have discovered an alarming beaver gap. Oh, you laugh, you think I jest, but I mean everywhere you go, teddy bears, right? Teddy bears galore everywhere. The Canadian moose has begun to make a little bit of an appearance, but you would be hard-pressed. You would have to look high and low to find a decent beaver. So, in your bag this year, you have a little beaver wearing a little Roots shirt and so on, but that's just a stopgap because going forward, we'll be taking a little class photo with this guy later in the day, so be sure to keep him. But going forward, we're dedicated to, reinvigorating, right? Reclaiming, re-energizing, and re-glamorizing the beaver. And starting next year, we're going to have a series of designer beavers. We're going to start with an Albert Einstein beaver.
Moses beaver.
A Moses beaver.
Moses, in respect to this jacket, which was made this morning, we have really gone back and took a serious look at this, and it is our heritage, and next year is our 30th year, and we're going to do a whole collection, 7303, based on this beautiful beaver and its laurels.
So, next year, Michael and I are standing up for the beaver.